When we arrive at Dry Rock Gulch, we find a big piece of plywood with the words "Danger! Bloodworms!" painted in red. This is no idle warning, for almost immediately a bunch of bloodworms pop up from the ground and attack. As we pass through the front gate, we start the quest, High Noon at the Gulch. We need to investigate this place. Remember, we were sent here by the Nuka World Raiders to clear the park and make it safe for one of the gangs to move in. After clearing all the bloodworms at the entrance here, we see a Protectron right in our path wearing a cowboy hat named Sheriff Hawk.
Hope y'all are having a good day here at Nuka World. Ready to saddle up and ride into the old Wild West?
So, are you in charge here?
We like to say the only thing that's really in charge here is fun.
Great. More dumb robots.
I'm the sheriff of these parts.
Well, howdy there, Sheriff. Looks like you got some pesky varmints here in the Gulch that need straightening out.
I don't know about varmints, but we got us some no-good outlaws holed up in Bad Mulligan's mine. We could sure use a hand around here. What do you say? Want to be my deputy?
Now, if we have the robotics expert perk, we find an option here on this robot and all the others here to bypass their programming.
Okay, let me see if I can run some overrides and make you a little more helpful.
Employee manual login recognized. Currently running in full park exhibition mode. Visitors are directed to our 3 main activity centers: Dock, Phosphate Saloon, Giddy Up Kids Corral, and One-Eyed Ike's Quick Draw Contest. After completing each activity, the visitor will be given part of the combination to the safe that holds the key to Mad Mulligan's mine. Signs of life in the mine, originally believed to be mine cart ride attendants, but may actually be an infestation of deadly worms. Advise contracting exterminators. System will now reboot. Have a nice day, and don't forget your uniform.
This is why I hate robots. It's over, okay? The world ended. Deal with it.
Processing. Hostile visitor. Ignore and continue. Explanation for the sake of the other guests.
I guess I could bring a little law and order to these parts, Sheriff. You got yourself a deputy. Yeehaw!
The door to Mad Mulligan's mine is locked up. I got a spare key in a safe by the theater, but wouldn't you know, I plumb forgot what the combination to the safe was. You'll need to talk to my 3 amigos: Doc, Phosphate, One-Eyed Ike, and the Giddy Up Kid. Prove to them you're tough enough to take on the outlaws, and they'll give you their part of the combination. Good luck, little doggy. And don't forget your complimentary deputy uniform, courtesy of Nuka-Cola.
The uniform that he gives us is a cowboy hat and a Western outfit. We find quite a selection of Western clothing here in Dry Rock Gulch, on the mannequins and on some of the dead bodies that we find. So we gotta get into Mad Mulligan's mine, but the key is locked in a safe. We need to talk to 3 robots here to get the 3 pieces to the combination so that we can open the safe. One of the first catastrophes that we see here in Dry Rock Gulch is the wrecked roller coaster. In the front car, we even see a skeleton with his hands in the air like he just don't care. There's another car just to the north. This has a dead woman splayed over the back seat. The middle of Dry Rock Gulch has a bunch of drink dispensers, picnic tables, and small booths, which were used for prizes and games. But to find the first part of the ticket, we need to go west towards a little corral that we see. Here we find more skeletons, these next to a baby carriage, and almost immediately we get attacked by giant cave crickets.
Broken.
These bad boys are painful. I'm gonna have to be really careful. Heading west from here, we find a variety of skeletons. I feel like there are more skeletons in Dry Rock Gulch than in any of the other parks. This must have been a popular attraction pre-war, and it must have been a busy day at the park when the bombs dropped. But we do see evidence of more recent activity. Heading due south, we find the corpses of 2 traders leaning against a light post. And it's here where we find a star core. This is one of the many star cores we need to collect to bring back to Star Control to gain access to the quantum power armor. Heading back east, we find the Giddy-Up Kid right in front of the gate to the corral.
Oh, thank goodness it's the new deputy. You got to help me. My herd of Giddy-Up Buttercups have all fled the pokey. You gotta track down and bring back to my corral. Now, Giddy-Up Buttercups can't resist the taste of Nuka-Cola. So check all our refreshment stands. What do you say, deputy? Can you help an honest horse trader out?
We can skip this entire part of the quest by using our robotics expert perk.
Time for a little reprogramming.
Employee manual login recognized. Exhibition bypass protocol engaged. Handing over part 3 of this week's safe combination rebooting.
Or we can continue with the conversation.
I'm not ready for this yet.
Well, don't take too long now.
All right. I'll corral some horses.
Good luck out there.
Rustle up some horses for you, huh, cowboy? I'll be back before sundown.
Appreciate it. Remember, check the Nuka-Cola refreshment stands. That's where they usually run off to.
So we need to go looking for some Giddy-Up Buttercups. Heading west, we see a graveyard. I doubt any real bodies are buried here. It may have just been part of the pre-war attraction. But we do find some bloodworms here, and after they're dead, we can explore these further where we find a hidden Cappy on the back of one of the tombstones.
2 clues down, 8 to go.
Heading east in search of the Giddy-Up Buttercup, we find a lot of skeletons who were using these drink dispensers when they died. We even find one with his hand still in the dispenser. In this section, behind some shack walls, we find a cap stash hidden on a barrel. And there are a few Giddy-Up Buttercups all over this park, but the one that we're gonna get is eating out of a trash can by these picnic tables in the central part of the park. Each of these chairs is filled with a skeleton. If we head east around and behind the Nuka-Cola booths, we find a couple of outhouses. One has some ammunition canisters inside, and the other has quite a tragic scene. We see a line of skeletons leading around a wrecked outhouse, piled up on top of each other, right in front of another outhouse. These poor people died to the bombs while they were waiting to use the John. But this end is not quite as ignominious as the ending of the poor soul who we find inside the outhouse. Opening the door, we see his skeleton on the ground right next to a Nuka-Cola Wild. This guy died using the crabber. What a way to go. But we've got a quest to complete. With the Giddy-Up Buttercup in tow, we can head back to the corral, open the doors, and to finish the quest, we have to open up our Pip-Boy, go to the junk section, and drop the Giddy-Up Buttercup from our inventory. As soon as we do, the Giddy-Up Kid thanks us.
Good job there, cowgirl. If I ever need someone to tame these Broncos again, I'll give you a holler. Here's my part of the safe combination.
Attention.
Good luck in
Mulligan's mine.
With that, we get the first part to the safe combination. Next up, we need to head on over to the old saloon to talk with Doc Phosphate. A few wooden cowboy cutouts greet us as we enter. Heading through the saloon doors, we see devastation. Rubble and bricks and dirt and bodies upon bodies. But Doc Phosphate doesn't seem to mind. It's like he doesn't even notice. So we can head on over and introduce ourselves.
You look parched there, stranger. You know what you need? A bottle of Nuka Cola. Wild. The root-based flavor with teeth. Hospitality is a big deal out here in Dry Rock Gulch. That's why I want you to handle tending the bar. I got 3 orders of drinks I need you to deliver. One is just upstairs, and the other 2 are in town. You game?
Again, we could use robotics expert to bypass this.
Oh, no. We're not doing this. Let's see if I can make some adjustments.
Employee manual login recognized. Exhibition bypass protocol engaged. Handing over part 2 of this week's safe combination. Rebooting.
But half the fun is in the conversation.
I'll get back to you.
Well, don't wait too long. My customers ain't the most patient these days. You ready to take folks their drink orders?
Sounds easy enough.
Good deal.
The people of Dry Rock Gulch are about to meet the friendliest bartender in town. You have my word.
Appreciate it. You'll be delivering to Prospector Owen upstairs and Miss Trixie and Handy Hank in town.
Time to deliver some drinks. Heading upstairs to find Prospector Owen, we find a woman slumped over in a chair just about to fall. And at the end of this balcony, we see Prospector Owen slumped over in his chair with his cowboy hat on the floor. To fulfill this portion of the quest, we serve the drink, but we can always take it back at any time. To find Miss Trixie, we head out the saloon to walk down the main street of this town. We see all sorts of cowboy buildings to the left and the right, a general store, a barber, a dentist, an undertaker, and as we go, we fight all sorts of bloodworms. Miss Trixie is in one of the barns. We find her sitting in a chair at a table right next to 3 bales of hay. We can serve the drink, and if we want, take it back. To find Handy Hank, we just turn around and go right across the street to the blacksmith. According to a sign, this smithy did boarding and shoeing. Inside the shop, we find Handy Hank sitting at a table with another cowboy hat on the floor, and we can serve him the drink. Heading out and back to the saloon, we can tell Doc Phosphate of our success.
Good job. Did old Prospector Owen give you one of his great tall tales as a reward for his drink? What about Miss Trixie and Handy Hank?
You haven't spoken to any of them yourself in a while, have you?
Why would I? Fine folks such as yourself are always on hand to serve them their drinks. Now, did Owen, Trixie, and Hank give you any of their fine tales?
They weren't exactly in a talkative mood.
Had one too many, huh? That sure sounds like the 3 of them, all right.
I'm afraid everyone's dead. The only things left are their skeletons.
Well, that ain't good. Nuka Cola would like to apologize that this part of the Dry Rock Gulch experience was not up to our standards. Rest assured, your complaint will be forwarded to the Human Resources and Maintenance Departments.
Oh, yeah! Owen, Trixie, and Hank told me all about the California Gold Rush. Fun and educational!
Now, that's good to hear. You did a fine job, partner. Here's my part of the safe combination. And, hey, why not take a few more bottles of Nuka Cola while on your way out, courtesy of Nuka Cola.
Now we have 2 of the 3 pieces to the password we need to open the safe, but before we go off and find the 3rd, let's explore behind the counter. Here we find another Nuka Cola Wild, a cooler with chems and Nuka Cola inside, and on the wall we find Doc Phosphate Attraction Terminal. We find 2 entries, Requests and schedule announcements. Inside requests, we see an entry on snacks. We learn that one of the employees, Vinny, was requesting that the saloon serve some sort of food. Sounds like Nuka-Cola was only serving Nuka-Cola. Because this is a saloon, Nuka-Cola Dark, the only alcoholic version of Nuka-Cola, was selling like crazy. It was even selling better than Nuka-Cola Wild. Because they're making so much money, Vinny's manager, Sven, refuses to cut anyone off. So if they're not going to cut anyone off if they get too drunk, Vinny says, look, let's at least get some food in here to buffer their alcohol intake, even if it's just something like overpriced snack cakes. The next one, hiring, is by manager Sven. We learn that one of the popular bartenders, Barb, quit, and that leaves them without somebody who's older than 18 who can serve drinks. He talked with Dougie, who was working over at the Fizz Top Grill, but they can't spare any right now, so Sven is considering using one of his underage employees, Jenny. He says, she looks like she could pass for 18 easy. Oh dear. In the next one, time off, Vinny has finally had enough. He says, I know we're short-staffed and we got the end of the season coming up, but I need a day off. Fire me if you want to, but I can't deal with the drunk, dysfunctional parents and their sugar-amped kids. Nuka-Cola has been working this guy so hard that he hasn't had a day off in a month. Because they don't sell food and they sell so much Nuka-Cola Dark, he's constantly having to mop up vomit and break up bar fights. And the last note, first aid, it looks like they finally replaced Barb with a bartender named Carol. She's requesting more first aid kits. The company policy is to send injured people back to Nuka Town, USA. We learned that they do that even in the case of venomous animal bites from the Safari Adventure. But Carol says that this policy doesn't work, especially when you're dealing with drunks who are too rowdy. She suggests that they turn the sheriff's building in town into a reality. She says, hey, at least then we can offer visitors an authentic experience in a drunk tank. I bet they'd even pay for it. In the final terminal entry, we find an explanation for why there are so many skeletons littering the place. Management says that there will be no scheduled time off for this year's upcoming Halloween celebration. All Dry Rock Gulch employees were expected to be available for at least one shift per day. In addition to that, they're adding the new shift of midnight to the attraction, but these closers still had to close, which means they weren't likely to leave until after 2 a.m. At Safari Adventure, we learned that Nuka-Cola's policies put the company's profit even before visitor safety. And at Dry Rock Gulch, we learned that their employees more than anyone suffered over their draconian operation policies. But we have one more part of the password to find. Heading back over to the blacksmith where we found Handy Hank, we can talk with One-Eyed Ike.
So, you're the new deputy, huh? Well, I ain't impressed yet. Let's see how you handle an old-fashioned quick draw duel. The rules are simple. We'll each walk into the street. I'll count to 3, and then I'll say, draw. First one to hit the other wins.
As always, we can use Robotics Expert to hack the guy and bypass this part.
I think a little administrative override is in order.
Employ manual login recognized. Exhibition bypass protocol engaged. Handing over part 1 of this week's safe combination. Rebooting.
Or we can have a duel.
Vivid, I'm not ready yet.
Scared? Ha! I don't blame ya. You ready to slap iron and tool?
I'm in. Let's go.
Well, all right.
Hold on to your hat, One-Eyed Ike, because I'm about to show you the fastest gun in the West.
Let's see if your shooting is as fast as your mouth, partner. Hey, now, we can't have a shootout without you being properly equipped. Here, take my spare pistol. All right, gunslinger. Let's take this out to the street.
It's high noon. One-Eyed Ike walks out into the street and lays down some ground rules.
I count to 3, then we draw.
We can respond in 3 ways. We can break the rules and draw before he counts to 3.
1, 2, hold up there. A shootout has rules. You gotta follow, Let me know when you're ready to try again.
Or, if we're just not fast enough...
1, 2, 3. Draw. Too slow, partner. Let me know when you're ready to try again.
But if we can draw faster than One-Eyed Ike...
1, 2, 3. Draw. That was some fancy shooting there, partner. You earned this. Hope you show those outlaws what a real deputy of Dry Rock Gulch can do, and have a few extra rounds for that 6-shooter I gave you.
He lets us keep the Western pistol, gives us some ammunition, gives us a few bottles of Nuka-Cola Wild, and we get the final part to the safe combination. To find the safe, we need to go back to the entrance where we first talked to Sheriff Hawk. To the east of Sheriff Hawk, we find an expert locked door. After unlocking it, we discover Dry Rock Theater. And sitting on a wheeled cart to the right, we find the Nuka Sunrise recipe.
There we go.
We see a big roll of tickets on a shelf, and in the corner, an end of dungeon steamer trunk. Now we could open this door to enter the theater, or we can go back out and enter the theater through the main doors. I tried to be stealthy about this, but for some reason, Curie decided to just barge right in. When am I gonna learn not to bring companions with me on this character? Inside the theater are a whole bunch of ants, and they ignore Curie and immediately charge me. I had to replay this encounter 3 times because I kept dying, but with the judicial use of chems and alcohol, I was finally able to kill all of these blasted ants. Inside we find the source of these ants, 5 large ant mounds right in the middle of the theater. But the safe we need is in the back of the far eastern building. We find it lying on the ground, and we can now open it with the password. Lying inside, we find the key to Mad Mulligan's mine. Against the northern wall, we find a Nuka-Cola Wild in a locker and a holotape, Jesse's personal log.
This has got to be the worst gig yet. Caleb came up with another way to torture us with his ridiculous method acting. First it was all the drinking, which, admittedly, was fun at first. But now the guy's refusing to bathe and subjecting us to the worst body odor ever known to mankind. Seriously. The guy plays the town drunk in some Wild West kid show. This ain't Hollywood.
Also in this locker is the response to that holotape, Caleb's personal log.
I think the whiskey is totally helping me get into the headspace I needed for this new role. I'm really starting to embrace it. And I think I'm seriously nailing it out there, on stage. Jesse's trying to harass me over it, saying it's not right, but screw him. It's time to take this role to the next level. Maybe I'll be the one playing Sheriff Bruce next year. And then Jesse can play the town drunk. It'd serve the jealous bastard right.
Anyone else getting a big Calculon vibe from these guys? I'm all about having pride in the work that you do, but that's a bit much. Now that we have the key, we can head on over to Mad Mulligan's mine. Going east, past the roller coaster, past the food court, down Main Street, and through an alley, we reach the next part of town where we find the mine, but we also find a lot of other stuff here. One of the saddest sights is the skeleton of a woman hunched over a baby carriage, but her baby is nowhere to be found. All that's left is the baby's souvenir teddy bear. There's a lot to loot walking up and down this street. We find ammo boxes, footlockers, first aid kits, and the remains of mothers and their small babies everywhere. To the north, we find a bunch of ammunition and chems lying on top of a counter. This is the shooting range, and there's a skeleton of a woman sitting on a chair next to a holotape. Hopping on in, we find that these are the remains of Christy.
The new guy gave up one of the small cowboy cappy plushies yesterday, so Andre fired him. Now he wants me to rig the game even more. I told him, if I keep tweaking it, people are gonna know. But he doesn't give a shit, as usual. At least it wasn't the giant Sheriff Nuka plush. That thing's as big as me and covered in enough dust to choke a small crowd. Maybe Heidi can use me in One-Eyed Ike's quick draw. Anywhere's better than here.
Gosh, this company is so corrupt and so stupid. There's no bigger advertisement for the Nuka-Cola Company than Nuka World. This is where their biggest fans come to have a great time. To find the company nickel and diming them like this, and even cheating them out of their prizes, shows such a lack of respect for their own customers. And it's so completely unnecessary. Heading out and going west, we see a big fake oil tower, and hiding next to it we see another giddy-up buttercup that we could have used for the quest if we wanted. This is Ol' Sugartop, and it's infested with stingwings. We see 3 large stingwing nests right underneath it. I'm not sure what kind of ride this was before the war. Was it one of those elevators that drops you into a free fall or something? After killing the stingwings, we can explore it and there's not much here. But if we're in power armor and we have a jetpack and we manage to find a way on top, we see that somebody had come up here, either for protection or to be a lookout or maybe to snipe at some people. We see his skeleton sitting in a chair up here, and right next to him is a whole bunch of ammunition. An ammunition box, a Nuka-Cola Wild, and a mini nuke. But no Fat Man. Perhaps not everyone died immediately after the bombs dropped. Perhaps most of them died and the survivors took up fortified positions to defend themselves from the chaos and looting that must have taken place. Anyway, back on the ground, we can head back to Mad Mulligan's mine, but turning left real quick, we see a hot dog cart, and next to it is the Nuka bomb drop recipe. That's 2 Nuka-Cola recipes we get from this place. Finally, we discover Mad Mulligan's mine. It must not have been a very popular attraction because we don't find many skeletons here. There are only 2 skeletons who were waiting here in line, and only a few that were on the roller coaster. Compare that to all of the ones we found in the food court and the saloon, so I'm not sure why we find so few. But to enter the attraction, we go through a big door marked "Enter Here." Upon entering, our quest log updates. Exterminate the source of the bloodworms. Against the northern wall, we see a small gift shop. We can peer through the window where we see cash registers and one of those token machines. But trying to access the door, we see that it's chained from the other side. Sitting on a broken barrel is an animatronic in a Western outfit. We can take this if we want to. There are 2 skeletons lying by some benches inside, and in the northwestern corner, we find a man and a woman slumped over with a Nuka-Cola Wild sitting next to them. Peering at us through a window are 2 creepy naked mannequins, and we see some bloodworms. We can try to take care of these guys before we go deeper into the attraction, but almost as soon as we do, they burrow underground. So, we need to go through the arches into the nearby tunnel. As we weave our way through the mine, we pass by many skeletons until we find a break in the railing to the right. Here we see a big wooden cutout of a prospector, but hiding behind a crate is the corpse of Terry Tanaka. He's wearing another unique cowboy outfit that we can loot, and on his body we also find the Mad Mulligan's employee key and Terry's note. We're not letting those damn raiders take over this park. Dry Rock Gulch always had the best defensive positions. We'll make our stand here. Wow, well, considering how fresh this corpse is, he must of course be referring to the Nuka World raiders. Terry must be one of the traders and merchants who had occupied Nuka World before the raiders came. Instead of surrendering and allowing themselves to be enslaved and placed in collars, Terry here, and possibly some others, retreated to Mad Mulligan's mine to set up defenses. Continuing along, we see a shack near to a waterfall. Heading down some stairs to check it out, we see the corpse of a Brahmaluf, but something is strange about this body. It's surrounded in blood and its belly is moving. It explodes in blood and goo and bloodworms. After defending ourselves, we can look around to see if there are any more. Thankfully, no, we don't find any. But on the wall of this little shack, we do find another hidden cappy.
That's 3 clues. The letters must spell something.
There's not a whole lot inside the shack, but we do see a ladder to the south that leads up to a door that we can unlock using Mad Mulligan's employee key that we found on Terry's body. Inside the locked room, we can completely restock. We find stim packs, missiles, a missile launcher, and a Scope 44 with some ammunition on the table and in a box on the ground. I took this missile launcher as a sign that it may come in handy later, so even though this is my stealthy assassin, I brought it with me just in case. But there's no way out of this room except for back the way we came, so heading back and going up the stairs, we can continue along our way. Here is where we find the bulk of the skeletons. 2 skeletons by the railing against the western wall, and then 3 more as we turn the corner and go up the stairs. Continuing along and heading over a bridge, we see a stairway going underneath this bridge. Here we see a couple of bloodworms. I tried to get rid of them early on by shooting at them with my pistol here. Managed to get rid of a few. Continuing along past 2 more bodies, we round a corner to find the roller coaster loading zone. We see skeletons slumped over the railing and big splatters of smeared blood on the planking below. My quest marker began to move in the middle of the room, moving towards me. I took the opportunity to equip my missile launcher and... at extreme cost to my personal health and safety, I managed to make a dent in this bloodworm queen. But of course now my stealth is completely shot and I got attacked by a slew of bloodworms. The bloodworm queen was surprisingly not very difficult. It wasn't any larger than any of the other bloodworms, and with a couple of hits I managed to knock the snot out of this guy. Moving on, we see that I must have gotten one of those impregnated Blomoluffs as well. We see the carnage of its body laying all over the place. Oh, but then there's one more we missed. And that's disgusting. We see that these bloodworms and their queen had upended the floor in the middle here. The floor is in splinters. We see boards all over the place. And in the corner, another one of those impregnated Brahmaluffs. But I've got a different strategy this time. I equipped a fragmentation grenade, took out my pistol, and... booyah! Oh, looks like I ended up missing one. Well, we can take care of that. Bingo. In the corner, we find the end of dungeon steamer trunk, complete with a mini nuke inside. Heading up to the roller coaster tracks, we see so many bodies sitting in and spilling out of these cars. There's a little room to the east. We can unlock this using the manager's key that we found on Terry's body. Inside, we find a skeleton, a first aid kit, and the fresh corpse of Sam Teller. On her body, we find Sam's note. Bloodworms. Should have known they'd nest down below here. Came at us through the dirt. Only a matter of time now. I'm not letting them take me. Not some worms. Not some raiders. I'm going out on my own terms. My name was Sam Teller. I ran caravans and did good, honest deals out of Nuka World for years. I fought the raiders when they came. I led the holdouts. I was a mother and a wife and a sister and a daughter. And shame on you for taking that all away from me. Instead of being eaten by the bloodworms or killed by the raiders, she must have ended her own life. But we don't find a weapon on her body and there's nothing lying in her hand. Not sure how she went about doing that. Maybe she poisoned herself. Using the manager's key, we can unlock the other door, and here we find another Brahmaluff. We can try the same trick. But I failed this time.
Did you hear something?
After dispatching the larva, we can head down some stairs. This is the stairway that went under the bridge we saw earlier. And here we find another fresh corpse, this time of Ricky Braxton. We find yet another unique Western outfit and Ricky's note. We got pushed back into the mine. Don't know how long we can hold out. I keep hearing things, tremors or something. I don't think we're alone here. God help us. I wonder if we were supposed to find this body earlier, because by now we know exactly what was causing the tremors that Ricky heard. But this leads us to the gift shop. We can activate the medallion dispenser to get the park medallion for Nira's quest, loot some more Nuka-Cola Wild, go through the cash registers, and then on the wall behind the registers we find a terminal with 4 notes inside. The first is just an inventory note. They were really pushing Nuka-Cola Wild here. They had 10 whole cases of the stuff. I think this was Nuka-Cola aggressively trying to compete with Sunset Sarsaparilla. We learned when I did my video on the Sunset Sarsaparilla Company that their beverage did taste a lot like root beer. The schedule announcement has the same memo about not taking Halloween off that we read in the other terminal, but the final 2 entries are logs from Sam, the mother, daughter, wife, and caravaner whose body we found in the other room. In the first note, we learned that the only reason that Sam and her crew are here is because Terry thought that this was going to be an easy place to fortify themselves. And we also learn that when the Nuka World Raiders arrived, another crew went to hide in the Galactic Zone. I wonder if we'll find them when we explore it. In the final note, Sam says, "We can't afford to stay out front much longer. I can hear the screams of those who didn't make it. Coulter's raiders are close. We've got to push farther into the mine." Ricky doesn't think it's a good idea. Says he's hearing things moving around back there, but we gotta take that risk. We're dead for sure if we stay out here. At least back there, we might have a chance. Well, Sam ended up choosing poorly, but how could she have known? Who could have predicted that the bloodworms and their queen would have made a home here? In the back, we find a bathroom and an employees-only door that we can unlock with the manager's key. Inside, we find a couple more ammunition boxes and a couple boxes of rounds of 10mm ammunition. With that, we can unchain the door and leave Mad Mulligan's mine. With the mine clear of bloodworms, we can complete the quest by talking with Sheriff Eagle. Sheriff Eagle mans the eastern entrance to Dry Rock Gulch.
Did you have fun in Mad Mulligan's mine? Tussle with any bad outlaws?
Look, Sheriff, I just cleared out that mine full of dangerous pests. Can you drop the act for 1 second?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy trying to show folks a good time here at Nuka World.
This has been a real pleasure, Sheriff. But I think it's time you and your robot friends got sent to the scrap heap.
Processing. Emergency defense protocols activated.
And with that, if we want, we can complete the quest and then destroy all of these robots. Or if we're not in the mood to murder some robots, we can complete the conversation.
That mine was the nest for a bloodworm queen. Now that she's gone, this whole area should be a lot safer.
I can't understand a word of what you're saying, but you've been the best deputy this side of the Mississippi.
It was everything you promised, Sheriff. More fun than a bale full of hay.
Well, all right. Please put in a good word with Nuka-Cola Corporate when your survey card arrives in the mail. Here, take some souvenir bottle caps courtesy of the Nuka-Cola Janitorial Service Department. You and your friends are welcome in Dry Rock Gulch anytime.
We get 200 bottle caps, we complete the quest, and then we can head over to the Dry Rock Gulch Theater to raise the flag of the Raider faction of our choice. To do so, we climb the stands where we see a lot of skeletons, and we also find a ladder leading up to the roof of one of these little buildings. On the roof, we see some sandbag barricades and a couple of skeletons in military uniforms. Why were these servicemen sniping from atop the roof? These may have been military soldiers who were deployed here after the bombs dropped to try and maintain order. We learned from the Turnquist family that riots raged in the city for months after the bombs dropped. We can only imagine what kind of chaos happened here in the very crowded park. Here we find a sniper rifle, some ammunition, a Nuka-Cola Victory, and the Nuka Extreme recipe. That's 3 new Nuka-Cola recipes we get from this one park. We find the signal flagpole to raise the flag on the corner of this roof. But that's not everything. There's one final secret to Dry Rock Gulch. Now, if we happen to be exploring the exterior wall to Dry Rock Gulch, we do find a door with a terminal, but we can't access it until we restore power to Nuka World. What's on the other side? Well, we can explore what's on the other side of this door, even if we haven't restored power yet. Going back into Dry Rock Gulch, we find an overturned Nuka-Cola bottle statue to the east. We can use this as a ramp to climb up to the rocks. The rocks are pretty steep, it's a little hard to navigate, but if we go around, we find a path behind the mountain that climbs up to the wall. Once on top of the wall, we can turn right and walk across it until we find a big area completely enclosed by a wall. We can hop into it by jumping on a nearby roof, and we learned that this is the Dry Rock Gulch employee area. Hopping on down, we immediately get attacked by a bunch of feral ghouls. These, of course, must be the remains of the employees who were trapped here when the bombs dropped. Pain Train comes in handy for getting rid of these suckers, and after they're dead, we can explore. Lying on the ground next to some crates, by the central building in this plaza, we find a skeleton with a duffel bag filled with weapons and ammunition and an ammunition container. We do find the skeletons of a few employees who died in the blast, but most of these people turned into ghouls. We find a big repair shop. Inside we see a power armor repair station and a couple of those token dispensers which must have been on the fritz. But as we explore, I think we trigger a feral ghoul spawning event because we immediately get rushed by a slew of feral ghouls. Again, Pain Train works wonders, but there are so many we quickly get overwhelmed. It's time to pull out the Gatling laser. With this second wave of feral ghouls dead, we can go back in and explore. We see a Nuka-Cola machine being repaired and a novice-locked tool chest against the wall with randomized loot inside. Heading out, we see a garage. I think this is where they stored street sweepers. We find one overturned outside and two parked inside. Against the wall, we find an advanced locked wall safe with randomized loot inside and plenty of containers to loot. Heading out and turning right, we see a security terminal on the wall. Once we've restored power to Nuka World, we can access this to open the door, and this leads us back outside to that employee entrance door that we saw on the wall earlier. After exploring the grounds, we find a ramp that leads on top of some shipping containers and then up to the roofs of one of these buildings. We can use some scrap metal to climb on top of this central building where we find more U.S. military skeletons, again having taken fortified positions in the park. Did these servicemen just open fire on park attendees? Someone shot back, because both of these guys are dead. They did not turn into feral ghouls, though we do find at least one feral ghoul up here. After he's dead, we can loot the end of dungeon steamer trunk, and then on a table next to a big stack of fragmentation mines, we find issue number 5 of Scav magazine. That no caps rage. The cool thing about this magazine is it gives us a perk that grants us strength and endurance depending on the number of caps on our inventory. If we have fewer than or equal to 10,000 caps, we gain 1 strength and 1 endurance. If we have fewer than or equal to 1,000 caps, we gain +2 strength and 2 endurance. And if we have fewer than or equal to 100 caps, we gain +3 strength and +3 endurance. This is potentially a really powerful perk, but once you're later in the game, you're going to have a whole lot of caps, and if you have more than 10,000, you don't get any benefit from this magazine. One way to make use of this is to convert your caps into ammunition. There are some types of ammunition in the game that are equal to 1 cap per round. 38 5mm come to mind. You could just run around and buy as much of it as you can to make sure that you have very few caps on your inventory. Then if you're ever in need of caps, you could go sell the ammunition to get some caps back. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the full story of Dry Rock Gulch. A fun encounter. I always love seeing some of these crazy pre-war protectrons that have no idea that the bombs have dropped. One thing I should point out, these robots have completely unique dialogue if you happen to be wearing the Silver Shroud costume. I already did a video showing all of the unique dialogue we get when wearing the costume, and you can watch that video by clicking here. What are your thoughts on Dry Rock Gulch, ladies and gentlemen? Did you find all of the cappies and the Nuka-Cola recipe books? Did you even know that there was an employee section of the place? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I publish a new video 6 days a week on a wide range of Fallout topics spanning all of the games. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss my next video, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. And if you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. Patreon subscribers get access to a private channel on my Discord server, as well as a bunch of other cool Oxhorn perks. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, with a brand new video.